Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you to all the new subscribers and new members that have signed up recently. It's been really great to have you as part of this little family here on YouTube. So today we are going to talk about Love on the Spectrum, which is a dating reality show that came out in Australia last year and recently been snapped up by Netflix, so it was released internationally I think this July. So a lot of people have asked me what I think about the show, and I actually really loved it, but I want to give you a little bit more nuanced kind of summary of my thoughts of the show. But I also managed to get in touch with some of the cast members, so I've got some full interviews with them which are available as part of my extra content for my monthly supporters. So if you click on that join button below, you can find out all about supporting me monthly, and you can get access to some exclusive content like these interviews. So, Love on the Spectrum, a show about autistic people, a show about autistic people dating. Funnily enough, the creator is neurotypical, so that's going to probably set the tone for a lot of my thoughts on this matter. The fact that the creator is neurotypical really shows to me that the show is done for a neurotypical audience, for the neurotypical gaze. So I have some mixed feelings about this, and I think I'm just going to start with the things that I loved about it, because I actually really did enjoy watching it. I enjoyed the show. Let's start with the positive stuff. So representation, it is so important, and there are probably like a handful of shows that deal with kind of autism, but not very much. That's not a lot. And so I think it's just fantastic that the show was made in the first place, was picked up by Netflix, and shows kind of like a whole cast of autistic people looking for love or having found love. And so I think representation is incredibly important, and I think that it's great that they are kind of making this start and autistic representation is becoming more mainstream. I also just really loved watching all the autistic participants on the show. It was really nice watching people, well, they weren't like me, but you know, they were similar enough to me. I don't normally see people with that same kind of, I don't know, awkwardness or weird sense of humor. I don't see that on TV, and I think it's so important, especially for younger people. I can't imagine if I'd really seen a lot of that stuff on TV growing up. I probably would have had a little bit more better self-esteem, maybe. Representation is so important, and the autistic participants, they were just a joy to watch, to be honest. I really liked them, and I feel like if we met in real life, we would probably get on quite well. I also thought that it was really great that they were focusing on dating, because whenever autism is kind of discussed on shows, it tends to be more about like finding work and not rehabilitating, but kind of like assimilating autistic people into a neurotypical world, and, you know, especially finding jobs and stuff like that. And can't they learn to live like us? Hand-wringing kind of stuff like that. So I thought it was nice that the show was purely focused on finding autistic people happy endings, finding them the love that they want and that they deserve. And the creator actually did a show called The Unemployables, I think it's called. So he's already kind of done this sort of thing before. I really don't like the name, The Unemployables. But, you know, I guess he's learning. And I do think that this is it's a step forward, even though I don't think it's perfect by any means. I think that Love on the Spectrum has been a step forward for autistic representation in general. So that was what I really loved. I also just enjoyed it as a viewer. I just enjoyed watching it. So the dislikes. I don't want to discourage people from making shows about autism, but I also think that it should be done right, and it should be done better. So this is constructive criticism. I've already mentioned that I didn't really like this whole neurotypical gaze. It's made all about autistic people, and it was never thought that maybe autistic people might be the viewers. It was, from my perspective, it was very much like, look at these autistic people, not, hey, you, look at yourself, you know? I don't know what that means. And this was, for me, this was really obvious in the stuff that they did when they introduced each person. You know, said like, Chloe loves blah, 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 and Chloe hates blah, 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 blah. Like, I can't remember what it was, but, you know, thunderstorms or animals or something like that. And the reason that I didn't like that, I could see what they were trying to do. They were trying to rip off Amelie, who, by the way, is one of my autistic headcanons, for sure. But they were trying to be cute. They were trying to be cutesy, I think. I hope. But what they failed to get across was that it's not like autistic people hate thunderstorms because they offend our sensibilities. It's like, you know, if you hate thunderstorms, it's because the loud and the suddenness, the unpredictability, it's a sensory issue. And I think Princess Aspian has done a video on this as well, which I'll link below. But I think that she mentioned this on her video as well, that it's like, it's all sensory issues. It's not like just, oh, I love thunderstorms and long walks on the beach, you know. I kind of see what they were trying to do, but for me, that part missed the mark. So another criticism that I have was the cast. I thought they were great, but it's also, I don't think that enough was done to ensure diversity among the people there. Whether we're talking racial diversity or gender diversity, they did have some bisexual representation, which was good, but I felt that they could have just tried a little bit harder. And this became apparent when I talked to Amanda, and she told me that one of the ways that they recruited participants was at kind of like a convention, like a Comic-Con. I don't know whether it was Comic-Con or whether it's a similar convention. And so recruiting in a certain way will get you a certain batch of people, and then you can say, oh, well, you know, just no trans people actually applied, so what are we supposed to do? And okay, if no trans people apply, or, you know, no black people apply, then that's one thing. But you can also try harder. Like, people want to be on TV. Even autistic people want to be on TV. I know that it's hard because people will look in a place and go, well, we didn't find any people here. What are we going to do? But I do think that it's important to try harder at these things. So that's, I think, pretty much a genuine criticism, and I hope they'll take this kind of criticism on board when they're making a season 2, because it's going to be a season 2. I also didn't really like the way that it was edited, and I think this kind of reinforces the fact that it was for neurotypical people. There was so much happening that didn't make it in, so obviously the people in production are the ones that decide which bits stay and which bits go. And I think if they had had an autistic person in there, it might have turned into a different show. And so I don't think that I don't think it came across as mocking. Certainly not the way it was edited, but I think the way that it was edited did emphasize certain things. Maybe it emphasized a little bit of the awkwardness. And obviously you do want to tell a narrative when you're doing reality TV, even if you are trying to be respectful to the cast. So I think that's something to consider, but that's also just, maybe it was just the preference of the editor, and that's, you know, not really something that we can control. I did find the focus on their families I really did not like that at all. And I didn't like the coach, the relationship coach that they had. I'm sorry, I'm sure she's a really nice person in real life, but like, I did not think that her inclusion in the show was at all appropriate or even helpful to the people. I mean, I can't remember what her name was, Jodie or something like that. The problem is they paired all the autistic people with other autistic people for dates. So to have a neurotypical relationship coach come in and tell an autistic person how to communicate with an autistic person by neurotypical standards, that's not okay. I did not like that, and I did not appreciate her inclusion in the show. Although the workshop was run by another woman, I think, I just thought, like, you don't line autistic people up and tell them how to date. That doesn't help. Sorry. Maybe it helps. Maybe it helped them. I don't know. I feel like if somebody had done that to me, I would have been mortified. And if somebody had drawn stick figures to show me how to communicate and relate to people, like, these people are all adults. And that was also my issue with the inclusion of all their families. Some of them lived with their families still, some of them didn't. But including their families' thoughts on their dating life, to me, seemed infantilizing. And I know that they are probably close to their families. So much focus is on what the families of autistic people feel like and how they react. And actually, it's none of their business how the autistic person dates and whether they're successful and all of that. It's their job to help and not, you know, give their opinion. I don't know. Those were the things that I really didn't like about it, but that wasn't the overall flavour of the show. And I think that there are ways that could be adjusted in season 2. I don't think the premise of the show was fundamentally problematic. I quite enjoyed it, actually. So I really wanted to know how the cast felt about being in the show, and that's how I reached out to Chloe and Brody and Amanda to get their thoughts on it. If anybody from the production team is watching, I do have some recommendations for next time, and feel free to take me on it as a consultant. I do not consider myself the ultimate authority on autistic opinion on this show. I fully expect autistic people to disagree with me, because, like, we do that. If you care about what I think, then for next time, I would say, ditch the coaches. Have an autistic coach. There are autistic relationship coaches. I'm sure there's got to be someone who can do it. Like, find them. If you're an autistic relationship coach, put your details down in the comments. Reach out to them. I would also really like to see more autistic and neurotypical dates. Not just in a kind of like, oh, let's coach the autistic person on how to be appropriate on the date. Like, let's coach the neurotypical person how to communicate with an autistic person. Because I thought it was very strange how they only paired people with autism together. So yeah, more mixture, you know, and a person with ADHD and an autistic person, you know, it happens in real life, so why not in reality TV? I would say less focus on fitting into neurotypical standards, because autistics do not date in the same way that neurotypicals do. We don't. So that. I've already mentioned the diversity, racial diversity, gender diversity. Also, comorbidities. I know some people hate that word, but I kind of like it. Comorbidities is like people who have autism and ADHD, for example. And I know that they had two characters, you know, two members of the cast who were deaf, who are deaf. And I think that's great, but there is also a lot of other autistic comorbidities that I think, you know, we could raise awareness about. And I would also say, finally, just using the show as an opportunity to educate people about autism. And unfortunately, you're going to need autistic input on that, because it doesn't seem like you really knew how to do that for season 1. You know, because it's such a great opportunity. Instead of saying, oh, you know, whoever likes thunderstorms and little kitties and stuff like that, you could be like, this person is hypersensitive to light, but really enjoys extremely loud musical input with headphones because it's stimulating in that way. I pulled that like out of nothing, and it doesn't sound like a great idea, but you know, trying to focus more on why that is autistic, not just like this person likes this and they don't like this and this, you know, which was a bit, didn't explain anything basically. So, and obviously using this opportunity to educate people about autism will make the show into kind of like less of a gawking show, like, oh, neurotypicals looking at autistic people like zoo animals, like, oh, isn't it sweet? I saw a lot of people talking about the show, neurotypical people, like influencers on Instagram and stuff, going, oh, I just watched the sweetest show. And I'm like, why is it so sweet? You know, because like autistic people have relationships too. Like, yeah, it was, I don't know, it's just the, oh, aren't they sweet kind of thing. Very patronizing. Anyway, I'm in a bit of a spicy mood today. My autismometer, I don't know how you'd say that word, is right here on spicy, so apologies. I really loved talking to the cast members that I talked to, and I really enjoyed the show, so I don't want you to think that I'm just super grumpy about the whole thing, but... So the TLDR version is more shows like this, please, more representation of autistic people, more consultation with autistic people when making it, and less of the assumption that only neurotypical people will watch it. And yeah, looking forward to season 2. If you'd like to see the interviews that I did with the cast members, please click below to the join button. You get to join me on my extra content kind of quest. There are 2 different levels, but both of them will get access to all the extra content that I make. So I hope that I will see you there, and I hope that you enjoyed my thoughts about the show. Please let me know what you think of the show, whether you watched it or not, and whether you will after this, because I promise it's a little bit cringy to watch as an autistic person, but it's not that bad. And I just appreciate that there is really increasing representation now in mainstream media. What is more mainstream for our generation than Netflix, right? So I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you next time. Bye.